just a huge thank you to all of you that have joined this evening. It's a really, really special edition. It's a special session tonight. So I'm so happy to see familiar faces, new faces. I wanted to bring something very special to the end of the year's conversation in the kitchen. Um, you know, this will be the last one for 2021. Going into 2022, Conversations in the Kitchen is entering its third year, which is amazing. I mean, it's so, and what I want to do with it is really keep this growing and expanding so that we keep on growing a community where we help each other, where we become creative in our expansion and create a society that's much healthier in its mind, body, and soul. And all the speakers that I've gathered tonight, I feel really honored to have. They've all been on Conversations in the Kitchen. Dr. Vignesh is, I'm so deeply grateful, has agreed to come, and this is like his third time visiting. He's all the way in India. Dr. Vignesh I met a few years ago when I went to India. I went post my chemo journey. I did a panchakarma at his beautiful Sitaram Ayurvedic beach resort. It was the most incredible experience. It reset my health. And from having an extreme health condition to just people that want to ignite a healthier lifestyle, it is the best thing you could ever do for yourself. It's like the best health insurance. A mutual friend and colleague, Helen Altman, who's an incredible Ayurvedic practitioner and teacher herself and yoga teacher, always says it's like the best medical aids around. So Dr. Vignesh is joining us tonight. We've got Dominique Kantey, who's also been on, a dear friend of mine, who is a phenomenal yoga teacher, numerologist, and has a beautiful slant on her teaching, moving through the chakra system. Laura Santoni, an incredibly talented musician and therapist, and uses a number of tools to help people actually find their authentic voice and work through various things, having gone through her amazing project of Sing the Change, which was started to help kids in underprivileged environments, help them find ways of expressing and moving through difficulties. And her therapy is grown into sort of reaching adults and using various modalities. Nick Aldridge was on a few weeks ago, a dear friend. We also traveled to India together, a fabulous storyteller, a great philosopher of life's lessons, takes it, embraces it, and is not scared to be vulnerable and sort of share what he's learned from it, and has used it to really guide and help people in his life coaching, understanding martial arts, hence understanding energy. And last but not least, Thato Mabelane is an amazing now new friend and an amazing inspiration. Very, very grateful to have met her. Thato went through recently her own cancer journey, very, very recently. An incredible, was an ex athlete, pro athlete, and then returned to it. Doing the most phenomenal things, going through chemo, which is like mind-blowing. Just to go through chemo on a normal day is like one thing, and then to go and do professional sort of rowing when you're going through chemo and then win events overseas is, you know, unbelievable. Along which she's an amazing inspiration in the corporate world as a business leader. So I have an amazing, amazing panel of guests tonight. It's a little bit more round table. They're going to chat, starting off with Dr. Vignesh, but you know, there is going to be interjection so that we have the opportunity to jump right in, ask questions, and Yes, thank you all so much for joining. So, Dr. Vignesh, thank you for coming in. He's got a much later time difference than we do. He's sitting at 3 hours, 3.5 hours ahead of time of us. So, very grateful that you made the time this evening. So, thank you for joining, and just sort of a to ask you about a little sharing of how this year has been. I mean, it's been, of course, difficult, and all of my guests are therapists, they're healers, they help people, and that's their whole mission. And then I wanted to sort of be a little chutzpahdik, sort of a little bit cheeky, and ask to like share, where was the difficulty that came in within this year, but what tools that you teach people could you do that you could really sort of rely on, work through, and then take it through for next year, as we move into a new year?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Elaine, for taking this Conversations in Kitchen. I really like that name, Conversations in Kitchen, because most of our health is actually in the kitchen. So having that Conversations in Kitchen and taking it to the third year, I can imagine what kind of work you have taken to reach, and also the kind of people that you're bringing together, this feeling of community in a time when we are all isolated, and thanks to Zoom for that. So what did I learn in this year? I learned to subscribe to Zoom. I I learned some alphabets in Greek. That's another thing. And yes, I miss Cape Town. One of my highlights of this year was I traveled to Cape Town, and then I'm again looking forward to come back because I just saw that the price and the flights have dropped. I mean, the price of the flights have dropped to Cape Town, so I'm really looking. Maybe this is a good time to travel. Like, of all the places that I've traveled so far, Cape Town always makes every other city feels handicapped with the beauty. So it's just like next level. So uh, quite jealous of all who are in Cape Town now. And what did I learn this year that I would like to take it to next year? Okay, most of my consultations are online. Now that Sitaram is also open, people are coming from abroad. India is open. If you do a COVID test 72 hours prior, within 72 hours prior to your flight, so many people are traveling here. So now I am going through a hybrid model. Last year it was just Zoom. This year it's like a little bit of Zoom and a little bit of online and offline practice. Now, when I see people, some people have changed, some people have become great, some people have gone down. But one thing that I noticed, the mental health is going to be a big issue in the coming years. This is one thing that I can, we read about it, but I could feel it really. Like so many people are going through anxiety and depression. And I remember in 2010 or 11 reading about that 2035, 2030s, World Health Organization predicted depression and anxiety is going to be the top two diseases. But we actually made it much earlier with this pandemic. And now we have to be prepared for more Greek alphabets to coming in. And we have to, what that means is change is the changeless law of nature. That's what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. And that's, we all know there's nothing that's going to be permanent. Everything is going to keep on changing. But the last 2 years, the change has been so unprecedented. We just never got used to this kind of rapid changes and dealing with uncertainty. Just a minute. I think my AirPods charge is out. So the change is going at an unprecedented way, maybe for our brains, because our brain is designed to live in scarcity. We were not designed to live in abundance. We were designed to live with as minimal things as possible. That's how our body is designed.
And that is why in Ayurveda, any disease that you take, we could classify it into two of them. One is diseases because of malnourishment or scarcity, or diseases because of overconsumption or abundance. And today we live in a time when we are having problems because of abundance, too many options. And rarely we see people suffering highly or heavily or dying because of scarcity. Yes, there are people still dying because of scarcity. Like, I'm from India, so there are people still dying because of lack of food, and like in many other parts of the world. But when was the last time you heard somebody that, not the last time, when was the time that you heard somebody died because there was no food? But we hear people are dying because of heart attack or metabolic disorders or issues of 21st century, which was not so rampant just few decades before. So the future is about minimalism, reducing stuff, reducing access, and bringing conscious control to what you are being exposed to. There's no other way we can overcome, because we are having technology so great that many of the things that used to be a scarcity at one point of time, we are having in that abundance and for free. So in such a world, when food is abundant, the things that we wanted once, okay, just to understand, just 2 decades ago, to have a call to one of them, and what we are doing right now, these were things that people saw in James Bond movies in the 70s and 80s, when the villains would come and see on the cameras. And this was like only accessible to few people. Now every one of us have it in our home. So this drastic change that we are seeing, our nervous system, our gut, our body is not designed to handle so much of stuff that we are having. So this problem of abundance, on one hand, this is fantastic because we have access to so many things. But on the other hand, if we do not consciously filter, it's going to really take us to anxiety or depression or abundance problems with our body, metabolic disorders, diabetes, heart problems, cancer, stroke, you name it, or with all these things. So how do we go forward? We have to bring in as much mindfulness as possible. And we all have to keep health as our number one priority. And as Elaine just mentioned, that many of all of us that we are in this room are healers or therapists. One thing that I've understood, many of the healers and therapists, they have so much of empathy for others, they forget about themselves. So first, charity begins at home. Take care of yourselves, because the next 2-3 years, we're going to see a lot of PTSD, post-traumatic stress problems, anxiety and energy problems, people feeling that they have no control over things, and it's going to be a lot of issues. So we have to be really prepared, because the allopathic system is very inefficient when it comes to dealing with these problems. But on the other hand, they are fantastic with emergency. They are fantastic with bringing life back to a person, because they are trained with one single goal: how to keep a person alive. But keeping a person alive and living with fulfillment and happiness and contentment can be two different things. Today, we could have all the things. You could be alive, you could have access to food. But the question, are we having fulfillment? Are we having, the saying, success without fulfillment would be worse than failure. But if you have fulfillment, you don't care if you have successful or not. So that fulfillment is what we all are aspiring for. But on the other hand, the FOMO, fear of missing out, and issues with overintelligence, all of this, our, just like the first day when we have a little bit of sweet, the next day we need more sweet to appreciate the sweetness. And then a time comes, we don't appreciate sweet anymore. So we need to consciously taste. The best example is when you go to a perfume shop. After every time you smell something, they give you a coffee beans, so that you can appreciate which smell you are able to appreciate the smell in a better way. Same way, we need coffee beans every day. And these coffee beans could be mindfulness, these coffee beans could be sitting still, and these coffee beans could be getting rid of entertainment for some time, getting rid of sweets, alcohol, or whatever is exciting you. Now, today, we are living in an over excitement world. So, we have to consciously disconnect and put our nervous system on a flight mode so that we can appreciate this. We talk about this with, I'm going through a detox with sugar, I'm having a sugar detox. Now we need excitement detox. And if I was just reading, there is a book called Dopamine Nation. If you are a therapist dealing with energies, I highly recommend all of you please read that book, Dopamine Nation. It's fantastic. It talks about the hormone dopamine. Before we talked about serotonin and oxytocin and cortisol, but this concept of dopamine is the new thing that is coming up. But in Ayurveda, we call it high vata. When the vata goes up, it's difficult for us to ground. So we live in a virtual world, and we live in a world where we are aspiring to ground, but at the same time, we want to fly. So learning to ground is so important, and that's going to be one of the greatest therapeutic measures that we need to do. And what are the things that ground us? One is disconnecting from the virtual world. The other thing is disconnecting from too much of excitement. The other thing is engaging in physical activities, walking barefoot, spending time in nature. In Cape Town, the beauty of Cape Town, when people say why Cape Town is so beautiful, is you have all the five elements. You have the mountains, you have the water, you have the beautiful sky, and you have such a beautiful air. So all the five elements coming to one place, and that's why many people get so addicted to this place. You have nature with all the varieties. It's like a buffet. You can take what makes you feel good. If you like water, you have access to that. If you want to ground, you have the mountains. If you like that beautiful sceneries that you can see, which is a part of Windows screen service, again, you see that. So that element, that ability to connect with these elements, this is what is going to ground us in the future. Yes, masks are important, washing hands are important, but the 21st century, the next year's problem is we're going to have people finding need for help how to ground. And that grounding is what we all need. And when people come in these consultations, so what I give them tips is how to ground. And some of the tips that I tell them is your navel region. In Ayurveda, we have this concept called marma. So next year, I'm giving a mastermind program for those who are willing to or aspiring to be a Ayurvedic practitioner. If you're already a like a health coach or a alternative healer or a healer, you want to integrate Ayurveda into your healing practices. I'm doing a course on that because many people are asking. I would like to learn Ayurveda and integrate that into my practice. So one of the aspects in Ayurveda is a concept called as marma, where we talk about the energy points. And one of the most important areas, if you are dealing with patients who are going to have a lot of anxiety, difficulty to ground, is the area of navel region. So maybe Dominique will be talking about these through the chakra, in the language of chakras, because navel is a very powerful part, because that's where, in Ayurveda, there's a saying, there are two types of people who don't have vata problems. Vata is like the energy that is responsible for our nervous system. Like the word nervous system, it is prone to get nervous. That's why it's called nervous system. So there are two types of people who don't have nervous system problems: those who are in their mother's womb and those who are dead. So if you're alive, we will have it. So when we are in our mother's womb, all the energy and the safety and everything that we are connected is through our navel, which is through our umbilical cord. So when they come to Sitaram and we do the Ayurvedic therapies, there is a treatment, we do it. It's called as Nabi Vasti, where we pour warm oil on a pool around your navel region. And we keep you flat and keep you calm, keep you relaxed, cover your forehead, cover your eyes, keep your feet warm, and keep a warm oil on your navel region. So many people say, what is that? That is knocking me off. I feel that I could relax just like that, or sometimes I go to sleep immediately. What is it actually doing there? The reason is, when we pour something warm, many women would reconnect with what I'm saying. When they have painful menstrual cycle, they would keep a hot water bag on their abdomen. So when you keep something warm in your umbilical cord region, it instantly has the powers to calm down the nervous system. So you could recommend this in some people, if they're going through a menstrual cycle in women, you could apply some castor oil pack there and then keep that hot water bag there. This will also help to keep it warm. The other thing is to keep a hot water bottle on your legs and on your abdomen and go through some guided meditations or to relax. This is one thing I kept telling people. If they are under Prozac or any antidepressants, or they are finding it difficult to just calm down, they just couldn't find that button where they can switch off their overthinking mind. This is one therapy that they can practice. And if you're into healing, you're going to get into many people's energy fields and they're going through some traumas. Get into the habit of protecting yourself. Keep this hot water bag on your abdomen and on your feet, and then just relax. You will see that you are becoming much more calmer and more resilient person. The reason why we feel safe in a flight is because we know that it can land, which means it can ground. And the reason why I feel excited about the flight is, even though it is grounded, we know it can fly. So safety is about our ability to ground at our will, and at the same time, we feel that we can fly. We need both these abilities. So right now, we have we have designed an environment where we are taught, we are just too excited about the flying. Flying, I mean like getting excited about watching movies, getting excited about just thinking about what are the possibilities that we have. So we are getting into a generation where it's getting difficult to ground. So if we see what is a healer's job to do, in today's world, it is to help them to ground. And that is just one of my way of rephrasing what a healer is supposed to do. But the next 2-3 years, this is something that we have to be focused on. So I think that's all I have, because we have few other people. And if I yawn, please excuse me, because Elaine already gave me the excuse that it's late. So I'm wishing you all a wonderful evening and the discussion. And if you have any questions, I could, or then I can leave.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vignesh. I can't reiterate just what you've said. It's so spot on, just to be able to take those tools into the year. I want to, before you people ask any questions, just because you're all here, just to know, please God, if all things go well, Dr. Vignesh will be visiting Cape Town in the next few weeks. I will let you all know, and he will be available for consultation. We'll connect, and maybe we can sort of have some kind of group lecture somewhere. I'll find a studio for us. So yes, so I mean, if you can get to see him, it's magical. So anyone would like to ask Dr. Vignesh any questions before the others get chatting? Put up your hand or unmute yourself, and I'm just trying to, I've got 2 pages in front of me, so if you unmute yourself and just say hello. Everyone looks good. Hello Ingrid, nice to see you. By the by, more family. So pleased you made this one. Well done. Okay. Hey Johnny. Okay, so as questions come to your mind, feel free, write them in the chat, unmute yourselves, and I'm going to allow our next speaker to take it away. Dom.
Thank you so much. Dr. Vignesh, absolutely. Everything you're saying resonates. I've listened to so many of your talks. I sit down and I write notes often, and I always, Lainey knows this term that I use, like you're downloading from the cloud. Like we're just so lucky to have this information that you deliver in such a beautiful way. But I couldn't agree more that it is absolutely all about the grounding, and it happens to be root chakra. It's Muladhara for me this week, and so but it's really about, and this is kind of what I teach and whether it's numerology, whether it's the chakra work, it's all about the balancing of energies. And, we have this like sort of right side that is dominant in the male, it's connected to the sun, the left side connected to the moon, it's the divine feminine. And we all have these energies, they reside within us all. And it's about like the balancing of these energies and bringing ourselves into what we call like, it's sattva. So it's like the centering. So, it's to move away from the extremes and to just kind of bring ourselves center. And we all know we have triggers. I mean, it's so easy to kind of say, oh yeah, well, you should do this and you should do that. But that's what I love about the chakras, is each one is connected to an aspect of life. And it just gives such a beautiful way of really just finding comfort and centering in life in general. And so I will just elaborate on Muladhara, on the root chakra. So the element is earth. So it's really connected to how connected, how rooted, how grounded are we. Also, it's very much about our sense of stability, safety, security, even wellness. And so we find in these times, there's so much happening around us that is uncertain. And as you said, and it's about we have so little control over what's happening around us, but at the same time, we have so much control over what is happening within us. And I've had my own challenges, obviously, through these times. It's not easy working for yourself. That comes with its own challenges. But I have to be honest and say that I have found the last 2 years to be incredibly amazing in this, like maybe the pause or the slowing down and the not having to be everywhere and do everything has really, like for me, facilitated this amazing process of being present. I'm also cooking a lot and like so focused on just on health and well-being in general, so I've really found it to be a very positive time in that sense. So just it's allowed the space. That's really also very much connected to the root, to the energy of root chakra. And then each, like I say, each one has a different aspect. The sacral chakra is all about the divine feminine. It's connected to the moon, the element of water. Obviously, each one has a color, each one has a sense, so connected to a sense. So root is smell, and if you think of like fear, it's so primal. And look how animals will sense fear. They're so connected, they can literally sense fear. Whereas how many of us are even aware of our sense of smell? So it's really about dropping down, getting into the body, getting, just becoming aware of everything, our senses, where we are. And yeah, everything that I could kind of go, I can go through all the chakras. I'll do a quick little synopsis. So then the Manipura is the solar plexus, and the element is fire. So it's like the Agni, the fire. And I also love how Dr. Vignesh puts it, is that it's like, we need to know when to ground, but we also, the downside of grounding is that you can get stuck. So then the fire will ignite you. And so, yes, exactly. And we all need fire, and fire has the ability to transform. It also cannot be polluted. I think Dr. Vignesh has mentioned in one of his talks. So like all the other elements, so air, water, earth, everything can be polluted. Fire can't be. Fire cleanses. Then the heart chakra color is green. The element is air, and it's really about our sense of spaciousness, our ability to trust, and the non-judgment that then comes in with that. And it's connected to the skin. It's very much connected. The skin is our biggest organ. We absorb so much through the skin, and so the sense is touch. Then the throat chakra is blue, and it's all about communication. So the throat is so close to the ears, like it's about listening and speaking. Like we need to be able to listen as well as we speak. And so it's the proximity of the two, our truth. Then third eye, Ajna, is it's all to do with like non-duality and just trying to see things as a whole. Also Sadhguru, he does such a beautiful, there's like a video where he just talks about like it's the merging of the two sides, like the joining, the meeting of polarities. And that's really also what we're trying to do in our lives. And then Sahasrara is the crown chakra, and it's all about cosmic consciousness, like really tapping into, and this is all about community, Ubuntu, you know, whatever you want to call it. It's like we're all part of a whole, and the whole is always whole, and it has no beginning and no end. So I've just got one more thing to say, and I think I must pass on to the next speaker, and that is that in terms of numerology, we've this year that we're in now, 2021, adds to 5. It's a 5-year, and 5 is the number for change. So we all experience a lot of change. The year prior to that was a 4-year. 4 is all about hard work, and I think we all experienced that. But just to maybe give a little bit of hope, and the numbers don't lie, but we go into, so 2022 is a 6-year, and so it carries a balancing and healing vibration. So I hope that can bring some calmness and some peace, and we're moving in a good direction.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Domi. You know, I remember Dom saying that to me a few weeks ago about next year being a more balanced year, and whatever I can grab as a positive inspiration for next year, I'm going to, and I think you all should as well. And it beautifully sort of flows into what Dr. Vignesh said. You know, we're all working on that, and then it comes down to like simplifying. You know, when we simplify, we really can tap into what our senses offer. Sit down and listen. You know, don't just hear, but listen. When you're seeing something, actually look. When you're eating, actually taste. And you know, the simplification, one of the things we did when we did our teacher training in India was part of the yoga training. Nick was on it as well. We had a meal, every meal we sat in silence, which is quite a thing to ask when we lead such busy lives. But I tell you, it's a really beautiful thing to just try every now and again. Sit down and have a meal in silence. Actually eat, look at the food, you know, have a look at what you're seeing, without the distraction of technology. Actually taste the food, take your time. So all of those things ground us, and I really agree. I think it's the only way forward for next year. I'm going to be sharing when Laura and Nick and Thato are finished chatting about a very exciting project that actually Dominic and I are going to be hosting for next year. But Laura, I'd love you to join us, and thank you for joining tonight. Yeah. Open the mic.
Right. I've just put some earphones in, and I'm just wondering, is this affecting the sound by any chance? Just checking. Is it okay?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, great. So, when Elaine asked me, thank you very much, Elaine, for asking me to be here and to chat. I love this forum. I love the ease and the comfort of it, and the informality, and just and yeah, very grateful for it. So thank you. So when Elaine asked me to come and chat tonight, and to offer something and share something of what happened to me this year in terms of lessons learnt, in terms of teachings that I myself have had to go through, I decided that I would share something. I decided actually I'm going to sort of take you through a little journey through my own journal, because I do love to journal, and where I do write about, you know, my processes, and I always encourage this to my clients as well, and friends, and so I'm going to take you through a little journey through my journal, because I experienced quite a powerful process this year, And the process that I experienced for me actually has very strong universal themes. So when I speak about what happened to me, you'll probably be able to resonate with what's happened. And maybe there'll be some use for you as well in my sharing. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with sort of setting the scene, the context. What Elaine mentioned to you before, a little bit about me, if you don't know me, is that I work with music and singing. And my background is I was born into a musical family. My dad's a musician, and I grew up in Australia, and we traveled a lot because of his work. I got involved in music and singing, and I grew up. I went through the usual routine, as a young person wanting to be a singer. Got my first rock band. Then I got into wanting to sing and record, and then in those early days it became very much about 50% was very much about how I looked, and 50% was about how I sounded. So that was sort of the level of relationship with music to me in those days. And then that relationship evolved deeper as I became older. And then I started to use it as a therapeutic tool because it was very therapeutic for me. And then I developed projects for youth empowerment through music, and also teaching people about their voice and how to do healing through their own voice and writing their own songs, to where I am in present day, which is basically where this unraveling is going to take place from. And my present day situation is my relationship to music has changed yet again. And I'm now entering this space where I'm very passionate about singing sacred music and devotional music, healing songs, and really sort of have opened that door, and I'm sort of going in there. But it has presented challenges for me in doing that. So as I sort of continue with the story, I'm going to share with you first the universal themes that you may be able to relate to as well, that came up for me during this process around the theme of my voice and music. And the themes and the feelings that I had that came up was being triggered by this year were feelings of powerlessness and an actual feeling that my voice was not my own. There was a strong energy of the battle and a war and this inner divide and an outer divide and a type of disconnection, and a real desire at the same time for me wanting to speak my truth and to find my authentic voice. And underneath that was this feeling, there's been this feeling of having faith in the bigger picture, having faith in my soul's plan and the divine, and trusting my heart. So there's really these two sort of things sort of playing within my psyche. There's the fear side, and then there's the faith side. So what I'll do now is, when I look back at this unraveling, just so to benefit for you, what I'm going to do is I've basically put this process in a series of steps that have happened in the unraveling, like a cyclic process. And the beginning of this process starts with my longing and my desire. And it's that heartfelt desire, which was and is for me, to be able to sing this new type of music, to step into this new relationship with my music. And so it's something that I've wanted for a while, and I know that it's also challenged me to grow. So that's where I'm starting with, this longing, the feeling in my heart, this sort of connection to my desire. Then the next thing that came about was this awareness of dissonance outside of me. So this awareness of the dissonance in our world, the awareness of a feeling of the battle that we're all feeling, that war, that conflict, that divide, that split, that I felt surrounded by, during 2021, very, very strongly. And along with this external experience was, again, these feelings of being powerless to it, feeling vulnerable about it, feeling shocked about it, feeling sad and also angry about it. So very aware of what was coming up for me. And then the next part of the unraveling goes into my internal state, my internal awareness. Because I started to realize that the triggering of the outside world was waking up in me my own unconscious battle and internal divide. There was something requiring a healing in me, and it was calling me, this pull, this vulnerability. And then what came up for me was I became really aware of the fact that I wanted to hide. I really don't want to be a part of this. Like, how do I play myself in this world internally and externally while I'm feeling this? And again, that vulnerability deepens. The next layer is where it went into my body. It starts to manifest now, starts to manifest physically. And what came up for me was I developed chronic sinusitis for 3 months. There's no singing, there's no recording with my sinuses. So there was this huge block, and it just stopped me from doing the thing that I wanted to do and I loved to do. And I thought, come on, after all these years I've done it, and what is this? What's actually happening? But I knew deep down, again, connecting to that faith and the bigger picture, that there's a lesson, there's a message here. So I persisted and I kept going, challenged by my lack of patience at the same time, wanting it to be fixed and wanting to be sorted. Emotionally feeling frustrated, defeated, fearful, started doubting myself, but also knowing that this is actually a major universal lesson that I'm going through, and probably many, many others in their own context. So I kept telling myself while I was going through this, I'm fortunate because I'm using my skills. And one of the things I kept telling myself while this is all happening was to remember to watch myself and to watch what I was going through. So to keep a distance between me and the drama, and making it as impersonal as possible. Like, I was aware of the eye of the storm, and I had to make sure that I kept bringing myself back there and not getting caught up in the battle, the divide, the whole getting tossed around in it. So it was really that need for that mindful sort of pull back into my center, into my core, which was hard at times, very, very difficult. And now there's this next step. There is the introduction now, what happens, of spirit. Spirit starts to come into conscious play with my heart now. And there's this new sensation and a new awareness that starts to bubble in me. And what began to happen is I started seeing things. And one of the things is that I had this epiphany about my voice. And I had this epiphany, and that it was the craziest thing. It felt like my voice and my body were just literally separated, that my voice wasn't my own. And it really would disturb me. I'm thinking, I woke up one day and it felt that real. And yet I could speak, but still my voice, the sensation that this voice didn't belong to me. So it just so happened the very next day, my very close friend was having a birthday party, and she had a cacao ceremony. I've never been to a cacao ceremony before, but all I knew was that I had to bring with me something that I wanted to let go of and something that I want to bring into my life. So the timing was perfect. So right, definitely going to work on this. This is what I'm going to address. So this ceremony is my first time. It was amazing. There was a Sangoma leading it, and she sang, and she was amazing. She had the most incredible voice, played the drums, and she invited us all. There were 12 women, invited us all to evoke the ancestors and invoke the guides, to invoke the divine, in order to help us heal what we wanted to heal, which was wonderful. And at the end, I was quite surprised by the whole evening, because it was my first time. I go home that night, I go to sleep, and I have the biggest nightmares, like the most crazy dreams. I also have like really bad stomachache from eating all this cacao. Like, what is going on? And but this dream was just incredible. I dreamt that I was this warrior, and I was up front fighting demons. And there were demons coming into my face one by one, and they were really scary looking. And I was like looking at them going, oh my God, okay, here I am. All right, next, fighting and killing these demons continuously. And I remember feeling I was exhausted, and I was feeling like, this is just what I have to do. You know, I just got to do this is my job, and I've got to fight the demons. I've got to fight the demons. Anyway, as I'm fighting and they're coming at me one by one, amidst all that noise, this voice speaks into my ear very gently and very, very calmly and very clearly. And it says, is this what you want? And as that voice spoke in my ear, the space was created. It went silent and still. And I could have that very moment to see that, hold on, do I actually have a choice here? And suddenly a choice was presented to me. As Dominic mentioned about the throat chakra, and you know, everything about the voice, this energy center is all about your willpower and your ability to believe you have a choice. And in my process, I didn't feel I had a choice about anything. It's just, this is what's happening and this is what I'm a part of. So what was amazing is that in that moment, through that dream, a seed was planted, and it started to spread into my awareness that I actually have a choice. And I realized that I had made an unconscious choice from my past, that in order to survive, which cost me my authentic voice, was that I had to fight in life, that life was a battle, constant, always on my guard. So the next day, this is like really in my consciousness now. This is like really up there. And so I have a kinesiology session. My kinesiology is muscle tests. There's a karmic issue. There are 82 generations on my mother's side, the Italian lineage, who are clearing a karmic lesson. And the belief system around these 82 generations is, I am powerless. So 82 generations of women on the side, that's going back thousands of years. So this is part of a universal clearing I've discovered that I was a part of. So it's starting, all the sort of dots are starting to join up now. And I'm sort of linking things together, and now I'm thinking, wow, okay, I'm starting to understand what this is all about. So in retrospect, when I look at this whole process, and this, which is very universal, and the lessons that came from this shift in my perception and the opening of my heart further, these are the following things, the lessons that I learnt, which I'll just read them to you. It is my relationship with my inner battle and my inner divide that dictates my life experience and my ability to feel connected to myself, others, in the world. The outside world reflects back to me my internal battle and my internal divide and my feelings of powerlessness. And it's always an opportunity for me to use to heal and transform. The outside battle and divide is my external world, and my external world has nothing to do with my wholeness. My wholeness is constant and always present. Like my power to choose is always there. It's just that external triggers, that's just an opportunity for me to find my way back to myself, to my truth, through my vulnerability, through my soul, and to be available to that guidance that is always there. It taught me to stay present to what's unfolding, to watch it as an outsider, and to remember to pull myself in out of the storm. It encouraged me to forgive and trust in forgiveness of others and myself, because I realized that it's the only thing that's going to open the door to the new, is to be able to forgive. And that perception is so powerful. All of us can only see what we can see from a point of how conscious we are, how awake we are to our patterns. Everything is just a projection of our perceptions onto another until we bring it to the light and find it in ourselves, both the positive and the negative. So that's basically a summary of this experience and of what I've learned in the latter half of the year. It's been a whole year, but it's been the past 3 months that have been so intense. But I mean, I'm sure, I mean, I'd love to hear like if people can resonate with this themselves in terms of what I went through and what I've been going through. And of course, it's probably still going on. But, you know, as we know, things are in cycles, things are in layers. And so we address these as they arise. But yeah, that's my sharing.
That is so beautiful, Laura. Thank you, and you're so eloquent in how you took us through your processing. I mean, I think so many of us can relate to this, absolutely. But your eloquence is just beautiful, and you know, there's such a nourishment and almost a relief. You know, I think for all of us when we sit here, like when we hear others are going through, excuse my language, shit. You know, it's like it's hard. You want to be able to just like know you're not alone, and we hear our stories, and that's how we can connect to our humanity. But you're unpacking and you're peeling off the layers of the onion, so to speak, and to recognize that, you know, where we look to the outside to get comfort on the inside until we prepare to be brave enough and go inside to recreate a new outside. So I just think it was so beautifully eloquently put. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure.
Laura, what I was making notes of what you were talking about through this cycle that you've been through the year, and in my head I could literally visualize it as a cycle, because it so mirrors the hero's journey in all our mythic literature, and like this, like setting off with this intention, like you said, like setting off a longing for adventure, not necessarily knowing where it is, and it's like you pull to something, you got a picture of it in your head, but you don't know what it is, and it's the hero's journey into the darkness and into the self-doubt and into the chaos, and then meeting the sort of sacred, trusted, like hands that guide you, that always guide us when we're in the dark, when we're in the magician energy, but they can't drag us through it. They can just hold our hand and let us know that, like, you can trust the uncertainty. There's a crazy kind of thing that you can trust the uncertainty. And then that reaffirmed, like it reaffirmed that, because the thing with the hero is that the hero goes through the cycle and then returns to community and brings back gifts. That's always the story of our heroes. They bring back gifts. And that's exactly where you end up, is you end up creating this sacred music. But sharing your story is also coming back to community and bringing us the sacred gift that you've learned on this mission. So beautiful. I mean, I got like cold shivers listening to it. It's so beautifully articulated. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I just think, for me, I get so excited about it. I mean, for me, this is how I live life, and this is how I try and encourage people to do the same, because the key is really making your life as impersonal, like creating that distance, because everything that we think that's out there and that's hurting us, it's just internal projections that need healing. And I know it doesn't seem that way. It feels very like it's them to us. But I promise you, that's not the way it is. It's complete projection. It is, we are capable, we have the power to bring it out of ourselves and transform it. We have been given everything we need to do that. And we just need to know how to do that, and to keep relearning. So much as unlearning of what we learned how to deal with life. We're now having to really relearn how to do this consciously, how to work with our heart in a way that our feelings and to use the power of our heart, and to use the power of a mind that is impersonal. Not the monkey mind and the scattered mind, but an impersonal mind, a mind that can discern the difference between something that's dragging me down and something that's wanting to teach me a lesson. Big, that's a real fine tuning, and it's so capable. We're all designed to do that.
Yeah, I think that we're, like what you're saying, like, and also the fact that you're a warrior. It makes me think of the Chogyam Trungpa book Shambhala, the Path of the Sacred Warrior, and he says the warrior always starts with a broken heart. It always begins with a broken heart. That's the sacred journey.
Yeah.
We need to get home. We've got to get home. This is we're broken-hearted warriors. And the path is like rip your heart open, like Hanuman in the pictures. It's like keep ripping your heart open and keep recognizing that it's through our enemies, our perceived enemies are just opportunities for ourselves to refine ourselves and reclaim things that we've lost along the way or disowned.
100%.
So beautifully articulated.
100%. You're welcome. And it's that thing that's why singing is so powerful, because singing activates the heart. And the hero's journey is about the heart. And when you can activate the power and the energies of the heart, forgiveness, compassion, courage, vulnerability, all those vibrational qualities are extremely powerful. But when you know how to use them mindfully within your life and know how to identify where they come into your life and how, then you have the power. You step out of being a victim to being a co-creator. And that's exciting. It's really exciting.
Thank you. I saw, Daphne, you had your hand up earlier on. Do you want to still ask that question, make the comment to Laura? She's
Thanks, Daphne.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Nick, do you want to just continue from where you've left off? Nick is such an amazing, he's also, for those of you that are newer, that didn't hear Nick a few weeks ago, he was on, I asked him to also just share his thoughts. Such a great storyteller and seeker of truth and philosophy. Your thoughts on past year and moving forward?
Yeah, with pleasure. I'm excited. I came here not knowing what I was going to say, and just riffing off the other speakers. I'm like, there's so much to say. I made some notes. So Dr. Vignesh talked about grounding and the importance of grounding. And so at the beginning of, at the end of the hard lockdown, I started teaching sword work, like how to fight with samurai swords in a field, basically to a bunch of people who were black belts, who were all much better than me in my martial arts discipline, which is Aikido. But I just kind of jumped into it and was like, oh, I'll learn how to do it on YouTube. And I'll teach these classes. And it's just been, and basically my students for the first while taught me, because they were all much more experienced in this than I was. But it's become such a fundamental part of who I am, and it's crystallized so much of the learning that I've had. And basically what happened at the beginning of this year was we got to a moment where it was like, okay, this needs to be something serious. It's not just like a bunch of us getting together. I'm running this thing, and I started inviting other people. I was like, I actually need to step into a leadership role in this, which has never been, I've been a photographer my whole life. I've always wanted to lead, and I've always been outspoken, but then one of my coaches called it the king killer, the person, the sort of archetype who sits on the sidelines, can see everything that's wrong with the leader, will stab them in the back, but then won't step into a leadership role. And it was quite a brutal judgment from Stephen, and I'm super grateful to him for that, because it opened up this thing about like, okay, step into leadership, even though you don't know what you're doing, just step into leadership, even if it just means doing admin. I'll just do that. I'll run the WhatsApp group, and other people, and gradually I've like assimilated so much of the stuff by having to hold space for other people and all these complex personalities that I could have just written off. Now I need to lead them and shape this group. So it's been hugely powerful for me. But one of the things about working with in martial arts, and particularly in traditional martial arts where you work using swords. Swords are basically a lot of overhead movement. So if you watch little kids play with swords, they swing their arms around a lot, but they don't do a hell of a lot with their legs. But if you watch master martial artists, it's all in their legs. And so and then one of the things that happens with our energy, to get back to what Dr. Vignesh was saying about grounding, is that when we're up here and we're anxious, we tend to bunch our shoulders up. And we're all kind of now living in this hunched over the screen world, which our physiology and our psychology are so interconnected that if I hunch and I frown, it changes my psychology. If I put my shoulders back and smile, that changes my psychology as well. But when someone's like swinging a sword at your face, your instinct is to do this, you know? So it's like teaching yourself to, in that safe environment, it's actually relatively safe, having someone swing a sword at you, because it's not a car or a taxi or an argument with your spouse. Those are actually less safe environments because the consequences are much higher than in a dojo, which is a way of training. So actually, one of the things that I learned at the beginning of the year from a Qigong teacher was that a lot of the work of the early stages of Qigong is separating yin from yang. And the way he explained it was, yin in your body manifests as your bone structure and your connective tissue. And the yin is the feminine, the receptive, but it's also the structure in the base, and it wants to return to earth inside us. And the yang is the masculine, I don't want to say the masculine creative, because it implies that the male is creative, but it's not really that. It's the outgoing energy. So the outgoing energy is the creative. But what we tend to do is, as we get hunched or as we get into fear in our bodies, is bunch up. And then all of a sudden I'm doing this yin stuff, which is grounding, but I'm doing it in my shoulder instead of giving it back to the earth where it wants to go. So I realized that, and so I'm kind of cross-pollinating all the ideas that everybody's been talking about, but it's been what I've been working on this year, is that I saw some kids playing on a slack line, and I was like, a slack line is basically a tightrope, but it's made out of what looks like a seat belt, and it's springy like a trampoline. Okay, so I watched these kids playing on the slack line, and I was like, oh, I'm going to teach the martial artists to use a slack line, because what the slack line does is you have to, because the ground is moving, the slack line is moving, so you're suddenly on uncertain ground. Okay, what I have to do is, in myself, I have to ground my yin energy. So I have to ground into the uncertainty of this unstable thing. And what it does is it takes the vibrations that are moving through the line and it pushes them up through your body, so that, and you can release them out of your body, but you release them through the yang, which is your upper body, but you have to be completely soft. So our idea that the yang or the masculine is somehow hard is counterintuitive, and it's actually wrong for the body. So if I need to swing a sword or take any kind of decisive action in my life, my yin needs to be grounded, but my yang needs to be free and fluid and poetic. And you can teach the body to do that on a slackline quite simply, because the body actually, you can't teach someone how to slackline. The body just has to assimilate it itself, and it organizes its own, the firing of the muscles, and it's quite a remarkable thing. But then you bring it into martial arts context, which is a science lab for relationships, because I joke about it that, like, in my social media, that, like, you never know when you're going to be attacked by ninjas. So knowing how to use a samurai sword is a useful skill. But the truth is, the ninjas are projections of our mind. They're just mind ninjas. So the guy who cut me off in traffic is a kind of a mind ninja, but it's not him. It's just he was in a different zone to me, and I wasn't able to adapt. I didn't have flexibility of mind enough to deal with the guy who's going faster than me and has got a little bit more aggressive energy. And I got triggered. And when we get triggered, we get pulled out of our center. Okay. When I'm pulled out of my center, almost invariably what I'm doing is I'm pulling this yin energy that wants to go down and give me base and grounding. And I'm pulling that yin energy into the bits of me that want to fly, to use Dr. Vignesh's thing as of polarity of flight versus grounding. That would be like yin versus yang, that the grounding is the earth and flight would be, you know, the sky. So the founder of Aikido, Sensei, Morihei Ueshiba, basically, one of the things that I love about him, he said two things that just stay in my head all the time. He said, I am the universe, so if you attack me, you've already lost, which I just love because it sounds so arrogant, but it's actually probably the least arrogant thing you could possibly say. It's like, because we're all the universe, so why would you attack any other part of the, it's like, do you want to be like separate from the universe? Like you can't separate yourself from the universe. And then the other thing he said is that Aikido, which breaks down to the way of the harmonizing breath. So it's the harmonizing breath that is us. We are the harmonizing breath. We are the inhale, receive, exhale, release, you know. We are the harmonizing breath. Aikido happens between heaven and earth, which is yin or yang and yin, you know. And so when I align myself vertically, like what Laura was saying, I can suddenly be in this whirlwind, but the center of the storm is calm. And like I have this vision in my mind of being in the center of this whirlwind and going, like I kind of get this like goofy kind of like The Secret thing. It's like, okay, if I'm so centered in the whirlwind, like what do I want? Oh, look, there comes there's a house. I want that house. You know what I mean? Oh, look, there. Oh yeah, man, I want that holiday, and just pull that shit out of this whirlwind because because I'm basically in the center. And what happens is that you see something and I go, oh yeah, I want that life. I mean, this is the classic me and Facebook. It's like, oh man, so-and-so's going on holiday. I grab hold of it and all of a sudden I'm getting whipped around the freaking whirlwind, you know? It's like, no, man, like let it go, come back into your, because I'm out my body. Like my architecture is not aligned between heaven and earth. The harmonizing breath needs to be between heaven and earth. So it's this simple little like one-liner that like, it just keeps coming back to me. And then, so one of the biggest things that I've learned, and it's not even this year, it's like in the last like 2-3 months, is having been pulled by those things that I want. I heard a great quote from someone who was saying, addiction is carrying on doing things that almost work. I love that idea because it's like, I saw something in my life that I was like, oh, that I want, oh yeah, that thing. But I know the T's and C's of that are really, really high cost. They cost a lot in my life. And it's like, and then it's like, yeah, but I want it. And I'm start to pull myself and my heart's like being pulled up. And there were two things that I've learned recently is the one is that idea that wanting that thing is actually a reflection of what's in a piece that needs to be reconciled in me, and going like, oh, if there's this thing that seems external that I want, that I don't feel like I can have, it's a piece that I've given away of myself in the process of sort of being domesticated. And so I've given away something that, or I've disowned, or I've shut down. You know, I tend to, there's certain parts of myself that I'm scared of. I'm scared of my sexuality. I'm scared of So I switch them off, and then I don't. But then when they get opened, it's like, fucking, I've got to try and keep the lid on this box. And actually, what I've done recently is go, okay, no, like, let's open the box, let's look at this thing and go, oh yeah, you're me. All you need was a little bit of love, you know, and then just reintegrate. And it's like, oh, okay, so now I don't have this like thing, it's back inside me. And so that was the one part of this like huge learning that I've got at the end of this year, of stepping into new roles and seeing myself completely new. All of a sudden there come challenges in that. And that was the one piece. And then the other one was in relation to the same sort of idea, is that the dopamine idea that Dr. Vignesh was talking about, like, if you come from a very high drama background, you're like, what I understand it to be is your thermostat. So my thermostat, because I don't like to talk about you, I like to talk about me, because I can take ownership of the stuff that I'm talking about. And I don't do that because I'm a narcissist. I do that because I want to take ownership of what I'm saying and not project it outwards. But my thermostat for drama was set very high. So anything below this level of drama feels boring, which means that I'm constantly being pulled into places that are high drama and give these dopamine hits all the time. But the problem with dopamine is that dopamine is fundamentally unrewarding. It's cocaine. It's like you just need more and more and more of it. It's never really oxytocin and serotonin. It's just about the chase. It's like, okay, what am I going to chase next? What am I going to chase next? How am I going to? How's it going to be bigger? In bigger way, higher mountains, more risk, you know. And so the only way to solve that issue with drama, because I've spent so much of my life chasing drama, and when I worked as a newspaper photographer, it was perfect because I was just in drama all the time. And I get really cool and calm and collected when there's lots of drama going on, because it's my kind of happy place. But you can never build anything from there, because it's always chaos. So what I've learned recently is that in order to lower my dopamine thermostat, I've had to get used to being bored, what I call bored. And being bored has allowed me, for the first time in my life, to set goals and go. And there's a great talk by Tim Minchin where he says goals are for Americans, which he's Australian. He's very funny. He's like, goals are for Americans. And like, as creative people, goals, you know, it's just like, I'm going to go to Mars, whatever. But one of the things that goals do, which I've realized recently, because I've always been cynical about goals, because I've always been in the like, oh, I'm creative, so everything's chaotic, is that when I got pulled into the chaos, when I grabbed hold of that thing and started getting whipped around in the vortex and went, no, this isn't, I know this, and this isn't what I want, but I didn't know I didn't want to let go of the peace. I had an idea that I can just drop out and look at a longer goal. And that meant that this drama just became trivial. And and then it became the journey of 1,000 miles. And having a journey of 1,000 miles means that there's a lot of plodding that has to happen, instead of lots of adventure happening now and not going anywhere. And so that, I think, has been my biggest learning, is just recognizing that whatever's going on now is actually small, and that there's a bigger picture. And my goals aren't American goals. They're just my own little weird personal goals. And recognizing that I can be in the center of the storm and be completely still. And that for me is like, I think, stuff I've been working on my whole life, but I think I just got another level of it this year, or in the last 2 months or so. So yeah, so
That was beautiful, Nick. So beautiful. I love that you just said like that drama just became trivial. I haven't, I know you. We don't spend a lot of time together, but when we do, we spend hours and hours talking. And I feel like you so just hit the nail on the head of your truth and your courage of being so vulnerable and honest is just beautiful. It's so beautiful because it's so relatable. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Nick.
lovely. And last but not least, I would like to bring Thato to our kitchen for her to share her thoughts on the new year. I don't know how many of you heard her incredibly inspiring, riveting story actually. She was on a few weeks ago. It really just blew me away. It was very close to my heart, and just so eloquent. So thank you for joining us again this evening, Thato.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Sure. Wow, what beautiful stories everybody has shared so far. So thank you to the speakers. Elaine asked me to just share lessons learned from the year that we've had. So I just want to maybe give a backstory before I share my lessons learned. So at the end of 2020, after a year we had with the pandemic, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So shock and horror, I was devastated. And then coming into the new year, I was literally told that I would have to go through 6 months of chemotherapy. And that didn't sit well with me because as you know, I'm a former South African rowing athlete. So physical strength is something that I identified with a lot. And with my diagnosis, like my journey actually taught me that my mental capacity actually was stronger than my physical strength. So I had to rely a lot on thinking positively. What happened with chemo is that my hormones were suppressed. So that meant I didn't have any hormones regulating me. So suicide actually became a thought. And I remember going to see my oncologist and telling him that, this was happening. And he basically told me that he would have to put me on antidepressants. And in this time, I was thinking, but I wouldn't really want to treat a side effect of chemo with an antidepressant because that's sort of changing your biochemistry. And then he said, well, if I don't take this, then I'll have a hard time. So I went home and I spoke to my partner, who's a medical doctor, and she was like, well, it's a crutch, so you can use it. And I decided not to use it because I was so strongly adamant that I don't want to treat a side effect with something that will alter my biochemistry. And I remember thinking to myself, this is temporary, this will not last forever. And looking back after 11 months of cancer treatment, I'm glad I didn't take that because I don't have that issue anymore, and I'm done with my treatment. And I'm glad that, I was strong enough to actually say no to a specialist who was prescribing antidepressants. So what I've learned in this year is acceptance, surrender to your divine purpose. I didn't ask for this disease to come into my body, but all I did was just accept and trust that this journey will pass and that I will be fine. And that's all I basically took from this year. And what I take on into the new year is that my mental strength is strong, and to keep on working on grounding myself. I didn't know this when I started rowing. I started rowing when I was 14. I didn't know that water was actually my spirit animal. So I've rowed throughout my cancer treatments, and actually this year in July, a month after chemo, I actually qualified for the World Coastal Rowing Championships in Portugal. I was the fastest athlete, female athlete at the trials a month after chemo. So I was very surprised at that. But yeah, just once again, mental capacity and just believing in myself. And then also just, I can't even read my handwriting now. Managing to deal, to sort of ground myself and deal with overstimulation. So like sensory information is not good for us. I think Dr. Vignesh mentioned that, and Dom also mentioned that. So finding time to just disconnect from social media, disconnecting from WhatsApps, disconnecting from meeting too many people, and just being with yourself. And what I do is row obviously on the ocean or go for my walks in the ocean, lots of meditation. I started yoga yesterday with Elaine. So I'm taking that forward in the new year, where I can just learn to ground and just breathe and stretch and just learn to flow within myself, within my authentic self. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys. And just know that whatever you're going through, it's temporary.
Oh,
Thank you.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Thato. And I love that. That's what when you came on and you gave the talk a few weeks ago, that's what you said. Your inspiration moving forward was knowing it's temporary. This too will pass. But that was a philosophy that you were taught in your childhood. I remember with your mom, didn't you mention? And it was such a grounding thing to have learned and to apply. And, that's what it is with all of us sitting here. We all have things that we can it's often the fundamental and the foundational lessons that we've learned to carry those through. And, as Dr. Vignesh had started, and and all of you have mentioned, it's getting to the simplicity, breaking down, recognizing the distractions, so that we're able to move through this treacle and kind of just get to the essence of who we are, be the things that are more important, recognize what is good, know the difference, learn how to be discerning. So thank you so much. That was I'm so grateful to all of you that have joined this evening. I know it's getting a little bit late. Thank you. I have family that have joined, Ingrid and Johnny, and I'm so pleased that you joined. So thank you. I can speak faster than I can type, so I'm going to quickly reply to somebody. Debbie, so happy that you're here. And yes, I did recognize you, so I'm so pleased that you joined. I want to open it up to questions. Anybody who has questioned, before I lose some of you, because I know that's what starts happening. You're going to see it's late and you want to go and have dinner or whatever the case is. But I really want to share, going into next year, I'm going to take a break for a few weeks. I'm going to come back at the end of January, and I have Dr. Vignesh lined up to give us another whole big talk, which is amazing. I also have an amazing guy I've recently made contact with and been in connection with, Jason Goodman, who is a nutrition and health coach, works at he's one of the major coaches at the Mayo Clinic in Atlanta, so I'm super excited. It's a really amazing clinic. It's about integrating health, and his attitude towards it I really resonate with. So that's going to be at the end of January. He's going to be on with us in February. Dominic and I and another dear friend have collaborated, and we have put together an amazing program that is going to be up and running and ready for all of you to come and participate in March, end of February, March, a 2-day workshop of learning how to think well, move well, eat well. So it's it's a passion project of mine that was born during my chemo time. Both Dom and Lisa resonate, and it's part of their work sequence as well. Collaboration is the way forward. In the 2000s, with Dominic, can clarify that one and confirm that one. When we go into the 2 number, it's about collaboration. That I will tell you more details of, but we've been working fiercely at it, because my aim for this next year is to just bring a greater sense of healing. A lot of what I do is about helping others find ways to heal. I'm very much about learning how to teach people to fish, not just give you a fish. And I think it's getting back to the foundation. We all said that, like, back to basics, you know. I'm not full of airs, frills and fusses. I really think it's important to understand how to think, simplify, get the distraction out of the way, recognize how we think and how to improve it, and we've come up with very creative ways of how to do that. How to eat, getting back to basics, and how to move efficiently in this amazing body that we have, because that's why we're having this life experience on earth. So more about that, I will give you details in the new year. So let's open up for a little bit. Shona, thank you, so nice to see you. Happy holidays to you too. Question to the group of speakers, Peter. Pete?
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
Yeah, well, my question was, being a habitual procrastinator, and I enjoyed everybody's contribution, was amazing. Putting intention into action. I have the best of intentions. I know what I have to do, but just for me, it's always being action. Just that taking that first step or whatever it is been like a mountain. So any advice would be welcomed. Thank you.
Hi, Peter. I would just say, just do it. Don't think, don't spend too much time in your head. Just take the first step. And then that gives you inspiration to take the next step, and then step after that. Just do it.
Yeah, you're right. I think too much.
You can do it.
I'm going to add to that, because it's something that, you know, we've discussed at length, putting together the mental part of, you know, when I wanted to do it together. Initially, my idea was, we'll do something physical, teach people how to move in their bodies, and then how to eat, and then how to think. And I realized that's all backwards, because you can give people amazing healthy food, or you can show them how to move, but if they're having a dialogue in their head about no matter how healthy the food is, that it tastes terrible, or they're distracted while they're eating, I mean, you're not getting any nutrients in your body. So looking at how you think, you speak about your procrastination, it would be, I would really kind of say, like, give yourself, like, what you did with your yoga and your teaching. I know that you made yourself accountable teaching, so you put it on Facebook Live, and you were accountable to showing up for your people. So it's making yourself accountable, sort of, and to do it daily is hard, but setting up a little bit of a routine, sort of make an appointment with yourself to sit down and write down what comes to mind when you think of this procrastination, or take a journal and commit to a week. Just give yourself a week of, like, your little notebook, and you've got to commit to writing down what does distract you. So first thing in the morning, you're probably not that distracted, but if you're within an hour of starting your day, or have delayed it, you have to write down for 5 minutes, or giving yourself 10 minutes every night. And just like, what distracted me first, establish what is distracting you. Then you go into why. And from there, one works to establishing tools that you identify and that you connect and relate to, and implementing them for you. So, I mean, the thing is, Thato can give you hers, I can give you mine, but actually, I can work with you rather to recognize yours.
Right. Yeah. You're right. You're right. Just being more aware and more, not just relying on maybes and ideas, but being more concrete, like you say, write things down. That's probably what I need to do. Like the night before, to set the intention for the next day, so I wake up knowing. Yep.
And you know, I know that when you commit, you're very good at your commitments to other people.
Yeah.
You're stronger there, like, okay, I'm going to teach this class, I've got this appointment to go to, and you show up. It's about that, like, showing up for ourselves without ever, like, can we still do that? Why are we delaying it? And you know, and the thing is, sometimes it's hard doing these things alone, because I went through, with my cancer journey, it was a couple of years of going through that. And I had to look at these segments, peel away the onion. It was helpful knowing I had some people in place and some therapists that I could lean on and ask. So initially, to start it alone is hard. To have somebody help you become accountable might be where you start until you get your rhythm and move into it.
Right.
Sorry, Peter. Can I add something to it? As someone who's struggled with ADHD my whole life, and only really in the last few years started to really look at it in a real way, instead of that flippant, like, oh, he's a bit ADHD, or he's not paying attention. One of the things is, I'll have a to-do list of write a book, buy toilet paper, and spend more time doing, working in the garden. And of course, write a book is a very complicated task. So, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but so often the places where I would get stuck with getting stuff done was actually because there were action steps that were bundled together, or the sequencing wasn't right, that I was looking at the third action step instead of the first action step. So starting with the smallest piece is a great piece of advice. If you want to get started, start with the smallest piece. But sometimes the task is super complex, and there's a bunch of stuff that really is unappealing or seemingly unrelated to the thing that's on your list that you've got to get through first. So it's really also not only looking at what's getting in the way, but it's looking at the type of tasks or the type of processes that you're getting stuck with, because understanding the nature of the tasks gives you some insight into what's going on there. And then for me, one of the things that I have practiced this year is, if I feel it in my body, then I have to do something about it. So if somebody tells me something and I feel that I don't want to do it, I do want to do it, I wish I could do it, I've got it's okay, I have to do that, because that's the metric of stuff that's going to make me grow. So those are my two things. With years and years, I could show you the books full of lists of things, of undone things. And that's changed this year. So.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah.
And I
also have sorry, go ahead, Dominique.
Go ahead.
I hear what Nick is saying. I agree. It really also depends on what you're procrastinating on, because what is a thing that you want to be doing, but you find yourself stuck and not doing. Because I know for myself that if my heart isn't in something, in doing it, I mean, the heart is mission control. If the heart's not in something, you're not going to do it, no matter what logic your mind puts in front of you. I should do this because of this. This makes sense. This makes sense. If your heart is not aligned to what you want to do, it's going to be a very uphill climb. So that's why I'm saying it really depends on what it is. And if you find that the thing that you want to do is something that you really want to do, but you just can't get around to doing it, well, then you've got to find out, what do you believe? What are those things blocking you? There's some sort of a belief system. There's something that's blocking you from doing this. Am I afraid of failing? Am I thinking I'm not good enough? Or you've got to explore that. So that's why it really depends. If it's more of a practical thing, like getting and doing chores, everything will go back towards your heart and how much inspiration. We need to be inspired. There needs to be meaning. That's the human nature. It's the mind alone is not going to get it done. So
I wish I'd said that.
I don't even want to say what I wanted to say now, because I'm like, it's not going to even.
Was that helpful, Pete? All of us like being therapists.
You know, Elaine, you had a guy called Jonty on, and I've started reading his book. And one thing he said in there was, what you do frequently becomes your frequency. And that's sort of resonates with me, although I'm not at the stage of doing things frequently yet, but I can understand that repetition, doing things over and over again, you know, once you've got over your procrastination, doing it over and over becomes a habit and then changes you.
Yeah. I hear you. I remember him saying that. Jonty Mayer. Mayer, yes. You want to establish what is good, and I love that. It is a beautiful thing. You're creating good habits, you know, good rituals.
Yeah.
So I was actually going to say something along those lines. So Peter also know my dad was a writer, and he wrote poetry, and people all over the world have copies of his poems in his handwriting. So I definitely think a strong connection of like pen to paper, like in terms of I've taken it into the chakras and manifesting, and Sacral Chakra is very related to habits, and like it's in our habits, like our everyday habits. They enter through a door, and it's like really in tweaking, in just being aware of our habits and kind of managing them, and just having that kind of different perspective and understanding, I think.
Sure.
I mean, to be like, it's kind of esoteric on that idea is, you know, everything starts as ideas. Everything starts as ideas, and ideas are real and they're energy, but they're not heavy in this kind of matter saturated world that we live in, where things have weight. And there's a kind of I heard someone talking about it recently, going, there's like a conversion energy that's required to take something from an idea, which is in this very light, ethereal realm, and bring it into this world that we live in, that's, you know, finite and heavy and matter based. And the idea of writing things down, to me, is a piece of that, because it's the lightest thing that we can do, but it does make it tangible. It brings it into the 3D, you know. So it's like step one, what's the smallest thing I can do to bring this into a 3D reality? And then keep writing it down until you get sick of yourself and have to actually take action.
Yeah. I know. You know, for me, Nick, I practice. I'm a drummer, so I've never really committed myself to practicing consistently. As you can tell, that's sort of the story of my life. But they say the difference between like these virtuosos and just normal people that just do it for a hobby or whatever at that level is practice. They just practice a lot. So it seems easy, right? Just practice and you'll be great. But if it was that easy, everybody would be great at something, but we're not, because it's not easy to do the mundane over and over again. You know.
Yeah, it's the journey into boredom, you know, it's the journey into boredom. And it's I mean, it's interesting, you know, there's that thing about like a death by 1,000 cuts, is that like, it's that like whittling away at something, you know. We have a practice in martial arts called suburi, which is basically just swinging the sword over and over and over again. And I try and do 100 of those every day. And it's, you know, when you start doing it, 100's not even that much. You do 100, it's like, what's the point of this? But after a while, you start to get into a trance, and it's like, what's happening on my wrist? What's the line look like? You know, you start to get into this thing about like, I mean, I should imagine as a drummer, there's points that you've got to hit where it's like, you know, like I think about it in a kind of quantum way, that I've got to hit this point and that point, so, and that point and that point. But there's also the waves of movement that start to come. And once you start to move into those waves of movement, the movement starts to flow, you know. Yes. And that's kind of the music of life. And once all we need to do is just kick into that, and then the flow happens. But getting started is really hard. And we have very limited, sorry, I'm like riffing on this, is my favorite subject. We have very limited, I don't know what it's called, but like volitional energy in our day. It's like every day you wake up with a certain amount of energy to actually get shit done before we get into our habitual things. If our lives are chaotic, or if our lives are, if we're a victim to other people's agendas, what easily happens is our volitional energy gets pulled into that, instead of getting pulled into committing to our thing. So creating practices that go like, I'm going to spend 10 minutes starting something that I give a shit about, is super powerful, even if it's just a little bit, and then you get pulled out, you know. And that for me has been hugely helpful in just getting more proactive in my life, you know, instead of waiting for something to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's what one of my teachers says. Just 10 minutes a day, every day, is much better than doing 4 hours for one day and then skipping 5 days.
Yeah, and then getting tennis elbow and not being able to do it for 5 days. Yeah.
You know, you were saying something about, sorry if I'm just hogging this, but you said something about the slack line, the way you have to, it ends up where your yin energy is the grounding energy and your yang energy is more poetic and flowing. And that is so about drumming. It's because in the beginning they told me, because drumming is very physical, and I slam the drums, but the way to become good is to be relaxed. And I never knew how to do that. It takes a while to discover how to relax, because all the great players are super relaxed and they smoke on those drums. They're just flying, but they're super relaxed. So that takes a lot of skill. So it's like slacklining, which I can't do.
Yeah, it's that thing of being so like putting no effort into something, and that takes a lot of effort.
Effortless effort, working towards the effortless effort.
Yeah.
But you know, I think there's something I'm just going to add, and then if anyone wants to, please, you know, this is the whole point of this evening, was really that any of you who want to just jump in and add to the conversation. But something that came to mind for me while you guys have been chatting is, you know, there's such a difference, and Pete, I'm sure you know this feeling of when you're learning something academically, for example, like music and your notes and the technicality of it, it's first sitting in your head, even though it's a physical thing. And then you speak about the practice. And, you know, when you move to that place of like, you know, getting your 10,000 hours, practice, you move away from your head. And as Laura so eloquently said, you move to your heart. And as Dominic reminded us, our hands are, you know, the Chinese line, your hand is the Chinese line to your heart. So when you're using your hands, you're in your heart line. But when you no longer are in your head creating something, you become the thing you are doing. I remember teaching painting, and I was quite good at it. I did it in film for years, and I did techniques, and we'd get to, like, I'd teach marble, and you do, and we'd do big slabs, and you do sort of, there'd be many layers to it, and you do sort of part 1, 2, 3, 4 until you get to the last layer, and then I'd say, and then you become the marble, and they're like, Elaine, how? It's just the practice. You embody the thing you do so that you override and overcome your boredom. Right, Nick? You no longer, because your boredom is the desire, your head needs the stimulus. Your body doesn't need as much of the stimulus to revel in joy than your head does. So your 10 minutes of joy as opposed to your 3 hours of academic technical stuff is more beneficial, because you need the heart to start singing again.
And that idea that the heart is also the meeting point of the more grounded energies and the more ethereal energies, that it really is the place where it all comes together. I love that idea that the arms are actually the extension of the heart. That's magnificent.
It's nice. Hey,
I'm going to steal that.
Go for it. It's not mine, so you can take.
I know.
We are the universe.
I haven't said anything original in my whole life.
So I just want to put it through to all of you that are sitting here. Is there anybody that just wants to share while you're sitting here? I know it's nice, lekker, to just lay back and relax and listen. So there's no stress on that. Mara, I'm just reading through messages. Thank you for a beautiful evening. Thank you. So lovely to see you again, Mara. So much love. So I'm gonna just if anyone wants to tap in, say last minute things, but I want to kind of give you all an opportunity to maybe go and have dinner if you want to. I like to say goodbye before I see a lot of people have already left, but just to really... Where's this?
Elaine?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I muted you by mistake. Unmute yourself, Ingrid. Ingy, sorry. Unmute yourself. Yes.
Hi, everyone. We just want to say hello to you, Elaine and Peter, on behalf of Johnny. We're so delighted to see his family in Cape Town. And we just send so much love and blessings to you all for a happy, healthy season. And thank you, Elaine, for allowing us to be part of this beautiful workshop, really. And we've gained a little bit from everyone. And lovely to see you, Dominique. You remember me from Heidi?
Of course,
Bless
I do.
you. And lovely to see you all. Thank you from Johannesburg. We might be inundated with this terrible virus, but we shall overcome. And I know we will. Bless you all, and thank you. Excuse the wine and the eating, but we just had to see you, Elaine. And we're missing the ocean. We're missing the cold water. Bless you all.
Hi, guys. Thank you. Thank you for a wonderful evening. And hi, Peter. From Joburg to California. Hi there.
Hey, cousin.
Thanks, Elaine.
Bless you all. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Laura. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just gonna say thank you to all of you. Naomi, absolutely thank you so much. As well. So thank you for joining tonight. A huge thank you to all of you for letting me continue doing this. Please come back and join me in the new year. Keep in touch. If you want to join the conversation, get hold of me via Facebook or Instagram under my name, Elaine Seidel, or Conversations in the Kitchen, or on my WhatsApp. Is kind of the best way. So I really want to keep this going. There are some people I'm seeing in the audience. I want you to come on and chat in the new year. Just get hold of me. So yeah, just lots and lots of love. Nick, Laura, Dominic are still left. Thank you so much for making this such a special evening and a special year for me. You really all helped. Allowing me to be being a support for me as well. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lainey.
Thank you, Lane. Thanks for the opportunity.